Have you ever noticed that the moments when you feel most lost, most uncertain about who you are often the very times when you're the closest to rediscovering yourself? It's as if the universe has a way of pulling us back into alignment by first showing us where we've been drifting. And the truth is, no matter how far we drift, no matter how confusing the journey feels, the essence of who we truly are never moves. That essence is constant. That essence is abundance. When we talk about staying anchored in ourselves, we're not talking about holding on tight with fear or gripping with desperation. We're talking about rooting so deeply in the truth of who we are that even when the storms come, even when life throws its chaos our way, we don't lose ourselves. We remain just as the sun remains. The sun doesn't rise and it doesn't set. It simply shines. What changes is the earth's position, the perspective. In the same way, our abundance, our identity, our truth never disappears. It is only our perception, our alignment, that shifts. This is where the XP quantum method comes in. This isn't just a philosophy. It's a practice. It's a way of remembering. Because abundance is not something you chase. It's not a finish line out there waiting for you. Abundance is who you are. Scarcity is simply forgetting. Abundance is remembering. And I want you to imagine this with me. Picture yourself standing on the shore, watching the waves roll in. The ocean is endless, stretching beyond what you can see. Sometimes the waves are calm, sometimes they crash violently. But no matter what, the ocean never stops being the ocean. Your life is the same. You are the ocean. The waves are your experiences. They rise, they fall, but they cannot take away the infinite depth beneath them. Staying anchored in yourself means remembering that you are not the wave. You are the ocean. Psychology has a beautiful way of explaining this through the concept of self-concept clarity. Researchers like Campbell and Trapnell have shown that people who have a stable and coherent sense of self experience higher levels of resilience, better relationships, and deeper well-being. When your sense of who you are is strong and clear, you don't get knocked over by every opinion, every failure, every fleeting emotion. You're steady, anchored. And yet, many of us struggle with this. Why? Because from a young age, we're trained to define ourselves based on external markers, what grades we get, how others see us, the labels society gives us. So when life takes away those markers, or when they no longer fit, we feel lost. But here's the truth that can change everything. Who you are is not defined by any of that. Who you are has always been here, always constant, always abundant. Think of the sun again. You can perceive a sunrise like you can perceive a sunset, but the sun is simply being the sun. And in the same way, your abundance doesn't come and go. It simply is. You just have to align yourself, your perspective, your awareness, to see it. One of the most powerful examples of this comes from Viktor Frankl, the psychiatrist and Holocaust survivor who wrote Man's Search for Meaning. In the darkest, most horrific conditions imaginable, Frankl found that the one thing nobody could take away from him was his ability to choose his inner stance, to anchor himself in meaning. Even when everything external was stripped away, the core of who he was remained untouched. That's what we're talking about today. Anchoring in the self that cannot be taken away. And this is not just philosophy, it's neuroscience. When you practice staying anchored in your true self, your brain literally rewires. Neuroplasticity means that the more often you return to your true identity, the stronger those neural pathways become. It's like carving a groove in your mind. At first, it may feel difficult to remember your abundance, but the more you practice, the more natural it becomes. Until one day, it's simply the way you live. So let me ask you this. Who are you when the labels are gone? Who are you when the achievements, the failures, the opinions of others are silent? If you can sit with that, if you can feel that, you will find something that doesn't move. That is your anchor. That is abundance. There's a story I love that illustrates this. Imagine a monk sitting by a river. A student comes to him, frustrated, saying, "Master, I keep losing myself." One day I feel confident, the next day I doubt everything. One day I feel abundant, the next I feel empty. How do I stay consistent? The monk points to the river and says, "Do you see the reflection of the moon in the water? Sometimes the reflection is clear, sometimes it ripples and distorts, but does the moon itself ever change?" The student shakes his head. The monk continues, "Your true self is the moon. The river is your mind. When the water is calm, you see clearly. When it is disturbed, the reflection changes, but the moon remains." That is what it means to stay anchored. It is not about forcing the water to always be still. It is about remembering that even when the reflection distorts, the moon has never moved. You have never moved. Let's pause here for a moment, because I want you to feel this, not just hear it. Close your eyes if you can. Take a breath and remind yourself, I am not chasing abundance. I am abundance. I am not chasing identity. I am identity. I am. That simple declaration is an anchor. And here's the fascinating part. When you live from this place, life reorganizes around you. The frequency you embody attracts experiences that match it. It's the principle of coherence, as Heart Math Institute has studied for decades. When your heart and mind are coherent, your body literally shifts into alignment. You experience greater clarity, energy, and resilience. Your relationships improve. Your creativity expands. All because you are no longer searching for something outside of yourself. You are living from within yourself. This is why the XP Quantum Method is so powerful. It doesn't tell you to add more, to chase harder, to fix yourself. It teaches you to remember, to align, to anchor. And if you're listening right now, I want to say this. You already are who you want to be. The vision you hold of your highest self is not a dream. It's a memory of who you truly are. Your work is not to chase it, but to embody it, moment by moment. Imagine if a seed doubted whether it was ever going to be a tree. It looks around, sees the oak towering above, and says, "I'm not that yet. Maybe I'll never be." But the truth is, the tree is already encoded in the seed. The potential is already there. All that's required is alignment with the right conditions: water, light, soil. You are the same. Your abundance is already encoded within you. Alignment is what allows it to emerge. This is why perspective matters so much, because like the earth rotating around the sun, the light is always there. It's your position, your awareness, that determines how much of it you experience. And this brings me to something deeply practical. How do you stay anchored when life feels overwhelming, when fear creeps in, when scarcity screams louder than abundance? The answer is micro rituals, small daily acts that remind you of who you are. This might be as simple as placing your hand on your heart each morning and declaring, "I am abundance." It might be journaling 3 ways you've already experienced abundance today. It might be pausing before a decision and asking, "Am I choosing from fear or from truth?" Psychologists call this implementation intention, creating small cues that anchor you to your desired identity. Research shows that when you link a behavior to a trigger, like when I wake up, I will place my hand on my heart, you dramatically increase the chances of following through. Over time, these micro rituals create macro shifts. And here's where the XP Quantum Method takes it deeper. It's not just about doing rituals mechanically. It's about embodying the frequency behind them. When you place your hand on your heart, you're not just going through the motions. You are feeling the truth of abundance vibrating in your cells. You are embodying coherence. That's the difference between performing a routine and living an identity. So, let me bring this full circle for this first stretch of our journey together today. You are not trying to become abundant. You are remembering that you are abundance. You are not the wave. You are the ocean. You are not the reflection. You are the moon. You are not the sunrise or the sunset. You are the sun itself. And if you can hold on to that, if you can anchor in that, then everything else begins to shift. When we talk about being anchored, it's important to understand that we're not anchoring into something external, but into the truth that is already within. And this distinction is everything. Because the moment you look outside yourself for stability, you've already stepped onto unstable ground. The economy shifts, relationships change, opportunities come and go. If your anchor is out there, then you'll always feel tossed around. But when your anchor is within, when it's in the unchanging essence of who you are, then you become unshakable. There's a fascinating piece of research in psychology about what's called locus of control. People with an external locus of control believe that their lives are primarily shaped by outside forces, luck, circumstances, other people. People with an internal locus of control, however, believe that they are the ones primarily shaping their lives through choices, mindset, and inner stance. Unsurprisingly, those with a strong internal locus of control tend to be more resilient, more proactive, and more fulfilled. But here's the quantum twist. Even beyond internal versus external, there is a deeper anchor. The recognition that you are not just reacting to life, you are co-creating with it. This is where quantum living shifts the paradigm. You're not simply trying to control life through willpower. You're not forcing outcomes. You are remembering your alignment with the field of abundance that is always present. You are choosing coherence with that frequency, and in doing so, you shift how life responds to you. This is the XP quantum method in action. Let's make this tangible with a story. Imagine two people walking into the same room. One is deeply anxious, scattered in their thoughts, doubting themselves. The other walks in calm, grounded, knowing who they are. They haven't said a word yet, but everyone in the room feels the difference. Why? Because frequency speaks before words do. Our nervous system, our energy field, is constantly broadcasting. Psychologists like Amy Cuddy have shown through research on body language and power poses that our physiology shapes not only how others perceive us, but how we perceive ourselves. But here's the deeper truth. When you are anchored in abundance, you don't have to perform confidence. You embody it naturally. It radiates. And this brings me to an important point. Being anchored is not about never experiencing fear or doubt. It's about knowing where to return. Think of it like sailing a boat. The waves will come, the wind will blow, you may drift. But your anchor is what allows you to stop drifting too far. Your anchor is the reminder that you are not the storm. You are not the drift. You are the one who remains. So let me ask you this. How do you remind yourself in those moments when the storm feels loud? Do you have an anchor practice? Some people meditate, some breathe, some repeat affirmations, some journal. The form doesn't matter as much as the intention, to return to the self that cannot be moved. Here's an exercise I want to share with you. It's called the anchor word. Choose one word that represents your highest self. It could be abundance. It could be coherence. It could be truth. And every time you feel yourself drifting, say that word, out loud if possible. Whisper it if you need to. Feel it in your body. This word becomes a signal to your nervous system, a reminder of who you are. There's actually science behind this. In cognitive psychology, it's called priming. When you repeatedly expose yourself to a word, an image, or a concept, your brain becomes more likely to notice and embody it. If your anchor word is abundance, then saying it regularly literally primes your brain to look for abundance, to perceive it, to align with it. Over time, this rewires your default perception. And here's the beauty of this practice. It's simple, but it's powerful. You don't need to spend hours doing it. You don't need special tools. You just need your word, your breath, and your willingness to remember. Let me tell you a story of a client I worked with who struggled with constant scarcity thinking. Every day, they woke up with anxiety about money, about the future, about not being enough. I asked them to choose an anchor word. They chose abundance. At first, they felt silly saying it, but day after day, they kept repeating it whenever the scarcity thoughts came. Weeks later, they told me something remarkable. They still had financial challenges, but they no longer felt consumed by fear. They could actually think clearly, make better decisions, and even notice opportunities they had been blind to before. Why? Because their anchor word shifted their frequency, and their frequency shifted their perception. This is the practical magic of anchoring. And right here, I want to do a quick post check with you. If you're still listening, still here with me in this conversation, I want you to comment the word anchored below. That one word will signal not only to me, but to yourself that you are choosing to live from alignment. And if you haven't subscribed yet, make sure you do that too, because staying connected to these teachings is one of the easiest ways to keep yourself anchored in this frequency. So go ahead, drop the word anchored in the comments, hit subscribe, and let's keep moving deeper. All right, let's continue. There's another concept in psychology I want to bring in here, and it's called self-discrepancy theory. It basically says that when there's a gap between how we see ourselves and how we want to be, we experience discomfort, anxiety, guilt, or frustration. But here's the interesting part. The discomfort isn't bad. It's a signal. It's showing you the distance between your current perception and your true alignment. The mistake most people make is thinking they have to close that gap by chasing after the ideal. But through the XP quantum method, we see it differently. We don't close the gap by chasing. We close the gap by remembering, by realizing that the ideal self is not separate from us. It is us. It's already here. The gap is an illusion of perception. Let me give you an analogy. Imagine you're wearing a pair of glasses that are slightly fogged up. You look at yourself in the mirror and the image seems blurry, distorted. You might think, I need to fix myself. I need to change. But the truth is, you don't need to fix the reflection. You just need to clear the glasses. The self you're looking for is already there. Anchoring is about cleaning the lens of perception so you can see what has always been true. And this changes everything. Because instead of striving with desperation, you begin to live with ease. Instead of grasping, you allow. Instead of chasing, you embody. That's the shift from scarcity to abundance. This is also why gratitude is such a powerful anchor. Gratitude shifts perception instantly. In neuroscience, gratitude activates the medial prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain linked to decision-making, empathy, and perspective-taking. When you focus on what you're grateful for, you literally change the way your brain processes reality. You tune yourself to abundance. And the more often you do this, the more natural it becomes. Let me share another story. A woman I spoke with had spent years feeling like life was against her. Nothing seemed to go right. I suggested she start a gratitude journal, but not in the traditional sense. Instead of listing big things, I asked her to notice small, often overlooked things. The warmth of sunlight on her face, the laughter of a friend, the taste of her morning coffee. At first, it felt forced, but as days turned into weeks, something shifted. She began to feel anchored not in what was missing, but in what was present. And from that place, opportunities started flowing. New relationships, unexpected financial blessings, a sense of joy she hadn't felt in years. Gratitude anchored her back to abundance. And maybe you've experienced this yourself. Think about the last time you felt truly grateful. Didn't it shift your entire state? Suddenly fear seemed smaller, problems seemed less overwhelming, and you could breathe again. That's the power of anchoring through gratitude. So let's tie these threads together. Staying anchored in yourself is not about never drifting. It's about knowing how to return. It's about practices like anchor words, gratitude, breath, and coherence that remind you of the truth. Abundance is not out there. It's in here. You don't become it. You are it. And when you live from that truth, life doesn't suddenly become perfect, but your perception of it transforms. You stop being thrown around by every wave. You remember that you are the ocean. If you've stayed with me this far, it tells me something important. It tells me you're not here for surface level motivation. You're here because a part of you is ready to live anchored, ready to embody abundance, not just as an idea, but as an identity. And that's where we go deeper, because the true anchoring happens at the level of identity. Think about it. Every action you take, every habit you form, every decision you make flows out of who you believe yourself to be. In psychology, this is called identity-based behavior. James Clear, the author of Atomic Habits, explains that lasting change doesn't come from trying to change what you do, but from changing who you believe you are. And when you align with your true self, not the false self built on fear, but the anchored self rooted in abundance, then everything else reorganizes around that identity. This is why affirmations alone don't always work. If you're saying, I am abundant, but deep down you still identify as someone struggling, someone lacking, then the words feel hollow. But when you remember that abundance is not something you're trying to convince yourself of, but something you already are, then the words resonate. They have power. There's a concept in neuroscience called predictive coding. The brain doesn't just passively absorb reality, it predicts it. It uses your identity, your beliefs, as a filter for what you notice and how you interpret events. If your identity is rooted in scarcity, then even opportunities will look like threats. But if your identity is anchored in abundance, then even challenges look like opportunities. This is the quantum shift. Same external world, completely different internal perception, which then creates a different lived reality. Let me give you a metaphor. Imagine you're wearing a pair of glasses with red lenses. Everything you see is tinted red. You can walk into a garden, and instead of seeing the vibrant greens and yellows, all you see are distorted reds. If you forget you're wearing the glasses, you'll assume the world really is red. But the truth is, it's just your filter. Anchoring is like taking off the distorted lenses and seeing clearly again. You realize abundance was always there. You simply needed to remove the filter of scarcity. This is why self-awareness is so powerful. When you become aware of the lens you've been looking through, you create space to shift it. You realize, oh, I've been perceiving myself as lacking, but that's not who I am. That's just the lens I was wearing. Let's pause here and go even deeper, because there's another layer to this conversation: collective consciousness. Have you noticed how sometimes you can walk into a room and feel the heaviness, even if nobody has spoken yet? Or how being around joyful people can lift your energy almost instantly? That's because consciousness is not just individual, it's shared. We are constantly broadcasting and receiving frequencies. The XP quantum method doesn't just anchor you individually, it anchors you collectively. When you live from abundance, you don't just transform your own life. You broadcast that frequency into the collective field, and people feel it. They may not have words for it, but they sense it. This is how leaders, visionaries, healers throughout history have shifted the world, not just by what they said, but by the frequency they embodied. HeartMath Institute has studied this through what they call heart coherence. When one person is in a state of coherence, where their heart and brain are aligned, it influences the coherence of those around them. It's measurable. Your frequency literally affects others, which means when you stay anchored, you are not only helping yourself, you are stabilizing the field for those around you. You become an anchor point in the collective. This is why it matters so much for you to embody this. Not just think about it, not just dabble in it, but to live it. Because the world right now is full of turbulence. People are being thrown around by fear, by scarcity, by uncertainty. But when you embody abundance, when you stay anchored, you become like a lighthouse. You don't chase ships. You don't control the storm. You simply stand in your light, and in doing so, you guide others safely to shore. And this brings us to coherence in action. Because anchoring is not a passive state. It's not sitting on a mountaintop and ignoring the world. It's embodying your truth in the midst of life. It's coherence between what you know, what you feel, and what you do. When those three are aligned, you are unshakable. Let's take a practical example. Imagine you know you are abundance. You feel abundant. But when it comes to making financial decisions, you act out of fear. That incoherence creates tension. But when your knowing, your feeling, and your actions align, everything flows. You no longer sabotage yourself. You no longer live in contradiction. You live anchored. And here's something fascinating. Studies in psychology on cognitive dissonance show that when our actions don't match our beliefs, we feel discomfort. Most people resolve this discomfort by lowering their beliefs, by saying, maybe I'm not really abundant. But the XP Quantum method teaches you to resolve it differently, by aligning your actions upward, by embodying the higher truth instead of collapsing into the lower one. That's the difference between staying anchored and being swept away. I want to share a metaphor that captures this beautifully. Picture a tree with deep roots. Storms can come, winds can blow. Branches may bend, some leaves may fall, but the tree doesn't topple because its roots go deep. Anchoring is like rooting yourself so deeply in your true self that no external storm can uproot you. And the deeper your roots, the more expansive your branches can grow. This is the paradox. The more anchored you are, the more free you become. And maybe you've experienced this in your own life. Think about a time when you were deeply centered. Maybe during meditation, maybe during a flow state, maybe in a moment of gratitude. Didn't you feel both grounded and expansive at the same time? That's anchoring. That's coherence. That's abundance in motion. So how do we cultivate this consistently? We've already talked about micro rituals, anchor words, and gratitude. But there's another layer, community. Anchoring doesn't happen in isolation. You need spaces and people that reflect your highest self back to you. Because while you can practice alone, collective resonance amplifies your frequency. When two tuning forks are struck together, they begin to vibrate at the same frequency. The same is true for us. Surround yourself with people living anchored, and it reinforces your own anchoring. This is why communities of practice are so powerful. Spiritual groups, mastermind circles, healing collectives, not because they give you something you lack, but because they remind you of what you already are. They help you remember, and here's the deeper truth. The XP Quantum method is not just about you, it's about us. When you stay anchored, you create ripples that touch your family, your friends, your community, and beyond. You change not only your life, but the collective field we all share. That is how abundance spreads, not by chasing, but by remembering, embodying, radiating. Let's ground this with a final story. Imagine a village where every evening the people light lanterns to guide travelers through the dark. But one day many forget. The village becomes dim, people stumble, confusion spreads, but one person remembers. They light their lantern. Soon another sees it and lights theirs. Then another. Before long, the entire village is glowing again. This is what it means to stay anchored. Your light reminds others of their light. Your abundance awakens abundance in them, and together, the darkness dissolves. So, as we come toward the close of this journey today, I want to return to where we began. The sun doesn't rise or set, it simply remains. The earth shifts its position, and from our perspective, we perceive sunrise and sunset. But the sun itself never moves. In the same way, your abundance never leaves you. It never comes or goes. It is constant. What shifts is your perspective, your alignment, your awareness. Your work, your practice, your devotion is to remember, to align, to anchor. And when you do, you not only transform your own life, you become a beacon for others. So here's my final call to you. If you felt this, if this message resonated, I want you to take one small but powerful step right now. Comment one word or short sentence below that represents your alignment. It could be abundance. It could be coherence. It could be anchored. Whatever word feels true for you, drop it in the comments, and in doing so, you are signaling to yourself, to this community, and to the universe that you are choosing alignment. And while you're at it, make sure to subscribe, because every time you tune into these conversations, you're reinforcing your anchoring. You're surrounding yourself with frequency that helps you remember, and together we rise. So breathe with me one last time. Inhale the truth of who you are. Exhale the illusion of scarcity. And remember, you are not chasing abundance. You are abundance. You are not seeking identity. You are identity. You are the sun. You are the ocean. You are the anchor. And the world is waiting for you to shine.